Hey everybody, welcome back to Chicory's Travels. Today we're going to talk about a trip we just had a couple weeks ago, and it was to the Lincoln Woodstock KOA in the New Hampshire's White Mountains National Forest. And it was a beautiful area and a very nice campground.
I can't wait to go back.
Yeah.
I wish I could have stayed there the whole summer, but we made the reservations a couple months ago, and it is so popular that I could only get 1 week.
Mhm.
So in this video, we're going to tell you about the campground, and we'll kind of do it like we do all our other campground reviews, where we talk about the sites, and then we talk about the amenities and just a little bit of highlights of what we loved about the local area.
Yeah, and it is kind of remote. There's no big cities by there. It's really just you go there for the outdoors and the scenery. If you're into big cities, it might not be the campground for you. And it's way up in northern New Hampshire, I think, is where it's located.
Yeah, kind of like north central. Yeah. And but the KOA is great. And I got the feeling that a lot of people probably went there and just stayed there. But we did do some exploring in the local area. But it was very similar to other KOA, not journey, holiday, where it has more activities for families and kids and things like that. So we'll tell you about those in just a minute. But one thing we love about all KOAs, and this one was no different, is that they have a good range of site types. And this lets you pick something that works for you and your preferences as well as your budget, because there's a different price point for different site types. So we were in, if you look at the map here, you'll see that basically everything kind of is in a circle around this big open field where they had some of the play areas. But we were in one of these pull-through sites, and they were gravel. We were in a full hookup.
Yep.
Yeah, and we really liked it.
Yeah, and they also had some sites with just electric and water, I think.
Yeah, the back end sites down closer to the wooded area. So for people who wanted to have a little bit of grass and be in a wooded area, they were water and electric. There may have been some full hookups back there, but you can always consult that map to see.
Lots of tent sites and lots of cabins there, and they even had some different kind of cabins.
Yeah, but the neat thing about the tent sites is that they were in several different areas depending on what you were looking for. There were some back by the back end sites. There were some that were down this little road and kind of like its own little secluded place, and then there were some like right up front. Probably the most tent sites I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the cabins, KOAs usually have two types of cabins. They have a what they call a deluxe, which looks like a park model, and it has a bathroom and like a little kitchenette, not really a kitchen, but a kitchenette in it. And then they have a whole bunch of the primitives, and the primitives are kind of like your step up from a tent. It's just one open room. There's no bathroom. There's no water in there. It just has beds, though.
Yeah, and then they also had a covered wagon.
Yeah, that covered wagon was so cool. I wanted to stay in there. And then behind the covered wagon, it had its own private bathroom. And then, of course, it had like its own private deck and stuff. So there were a lot of options when it came to sites.
Yeah, and then our site, like Julie said, was a 50 amp pull through. It was hot, so we were glad for the 50 amp because we could run both of our air conditioners. But otherwise, it was a great site. The neighbors weren't too very close, and we hardly ever saw them anyway because they were out. Everybody's out sightseeing most of the day. So yeah, it was really really nice site.
And in the evenings when it's not too hot, we'd be sitting outside, and we were right in front of the big jump pad that you see at a lot of KOAs, and that jump pad was hopping, pun intended. But it really, I mean, the kids really came out in force, but even then it wasn't too loud.
No. And the quiet hours were at 10 o'clock, and it seemed like it got quiet at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I did. So, but in the evenings, there were always a lot of people out and about, just walking dogs and riding bikes and having a good time. And
they did have a playground next to the jump pad. It had swings,
like some climbing things. Yeah.
one of those circle things that you run around and jump on and it keeps spinning. I don't know what it's called. But it was a decent sized playground for kids, I thought.
Yeah, and then
And they were building next to the playground. It looks like they were building a pavilion, but it wasn't finished yet while we were there.
Yeah. And then of course they had a pool, and it was a pretty nice pool, and they had some umbrella tables there for like the parents or whoever just want to get out of the sun a little bit. They also had a game room with billiards and I think a couple arcade games and board games in case there were rainy days, which we had some rain. Never any days that were all day raining, but we did have some rain.
Well, the first day we were there, it rained pretty much all
Yeah.
day.
Well, we were tired from traveling.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They also had a barrel train that went out every day. I forget the time, but every day at a certain time, you can ride the barrel train. I think it was probably 10 or 12 different barrels on there that people would climb into and ride around the park. And they also had an old fire truck that you could ride every night at 7. And the reason why I remember 7 is because we would hear the horn.
And we'd be sitting outside usually, and it would come up right up and down the rows.
Yeah. People would pile in the back and wave. Pretty neat, little unique thing for a campground.
But probably my favorite thing at the campground was this amazing nature trails. And pretty much, I think every KOA we've stayed at has had a nature trail, but some are smaller than others. But this one was amazing. It went down a hill all the way to the river, and it went pretty far down the river. And so it had access right there from the campground. And that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of people we saw, they came and they brought their own little tubes and floats and stuff with them and would go down to the river. And they also had a fishing pond over there right next to it. And then in between that fishing pond and the river, there was an even greater series of nature trails all through the woods, which I went down there jogging a few times in the morning just for the shade.
Yeah, and we actually had our dog Toby and then our grand dog Yoshi, who's a big kind of lab boxer mix. And they had 2 dog parks, but they were kind of small, I thought.
Well, one dog park was big and one was really small. The second one, I don't know if it was just like it was for little dogs. They weren't side by side the way some are, where they specify little dog, small dog. The small one was kind of in the back, so it was off leash, but really a big dog wouldn't really feel like that was much. But the other one I thought was pretty decent size.
But we never spent any time in there. We always just walked them. And of course they went out with us if we went out somewhere during the day. And so they got tired from that. But there's plenty of area to walk the dogs and not be in the way or have to go into other people's sites or anything like that.
Yeah, and speaking of dogs, I didn't get a picture of this, but they also had a couple of outdoor shaded kennels that they allow people to leave their dogs if they are going out and exploring. So it was really hot when we were there, so I didn't want to try it. We just either, Sean doesn't go out hiking as much as I do during the day, so I'd leave the dogs with him, and then other exploring things, we just took the dogs with us. But that would be a really good option, particularly if you were there at a time when it's not so hot, because they are outdoors.
Yeah. And like Julie said, she did most of the sightseeing. I went out with her a couple of times, but she can talk way more about the sites than I can.
Yeah, so like Sean said, it's in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I'd never been before. I'm completely in love. I want to have a summer place there now. I mean, it was just so amazing. But one place that I went, it was only 15 minutes from the campground, and it's called Franconia Notch State Park. And you go right up I-93, which you think of an interstate as being like really busy and just lots of cars and nothing to see. This was not like that. This was like a scenic drive right in between these mountains, which I had just learned that New Hampshire is famous for having, I believe it's 48 mountain summits that are over 4,000 feet. And a couple of them you're looking at right behind us, Cannon and Kinsman. And so I actually went hiking in Franconia Notch State Park. I went hiking up to North Kinsman Summit, which is over 4,000 feet. And it was pretty spectacular. Along the way, also in Franconia Notch State Park, I went by Lonesome Lake Park. And then there were also some waterfalls. I mean, overall, it was just a beautiful state park. And in that week, I went there 3 or 4 times and didn't even scratch the surface of what it has to offer.
Yeah, and then one thing we did together and with the dogs was I forget the name of the town. Is it Woodstock? That
It's
has,
in North Woodstock, yeah.
yeah, they have a Loon Mountain
Ski resort.
ski resort. Yeah, and it's got like condos and stuff there. But one thing they keep going in the summer is a gondola. It's pet friendly and you can take the dogs on the gondola. So we took the dogs up. So then we walked the dogs down the mountain. It was I think 2,800 feet in elevation, about 2.5 miles
Yeah.
to walk down. So the dogs were exhausted by the end of that, but it was really cool to have a pet friendly gondola ride.
Yeah, and we could have ridden the gondola down if we wanted to, but it was nice walking down because you just got to enjoy that view that much longer. Also up on the mountain, they had like these glacial caves that you really have to kind of like squeeze through. We watched, but we didn't do it because we had the dogs and that one part was not very dog friendly. And we saw people even practicing for a wedding.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and on the walk down, the bike trails.
Yeah, they have lots of mountain bike trails. So if you're a mountain biker, you staying at this KOA is convenient to this Loon Mountain. I think it was like 12 or 15-minute drive.
So also that same area, North Woodstock, it's and Loon Mountain, it's off of Highway 112, which is the Concomagus Scenic Byway. Hopefully I pronounced it right, but it's a national scenic byway. It took us about an hour to drive the whole length. We did stop though, because there's plenty of scenic overlooks, but even better than the scenic overlook, I thought, were like the trails.
Yeah, short hikes, under a mile. You can be in some beautiful waterfalls. Yeah, just a lot of really scenic,
Gorgeous
water.
with like, yeah, all the erosion, making these really neat features. And then
And the water is crystal clear, like crystal clear water.
Yeah, and a lot of them you could swim in.
Yeah.
So one day we took the dogs and went just dipping. I mean, not really swimming because it wasn't deep, but you could sit in the water and just really relax. It was wonderful.
So that was our trip. Like we said, we were only there for 7 days, but we would love to go back and do more. One thing I will say as we get to the end of this is if you don't have some sort of toll pass, the drive through the Northeast is quite long without using tolls. So we highly recommend getting something so you don't have to worry about the tolls. Like I think they use Easy Pass.
Easy Pass, yeah.
Yeah. So otherwise, be prepared for a long, slow drive up to northern New Hampshire. So we hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know if you've stayed here before and what you like about it. And until we see you on the road, safe travels.